Hello again, I'm back, and I did this video yesterday, but I couldn't upload it. I was in the process of uploading the video, but hay fever season has really hit me badly. I couldn't even control my sneezing during the video. I was in such a bad mood because of it. My face swelled up like Kim Kardashian's ass. I looked like God knows what out of God knows what, and I had like a huge outburst afterwards and wished death upon all flowers and trees and bees and anything that was carrying pollen. I was in such a foul mood. Maybe I'll air that promo later on because it is quite amusing now thinking to it. But Kyle, good friend of mine, did a video talking about Ryback, which I'm in the process of watching, and as you can see, I've got the Ryback figure here, collector's item. You know me, I'm a nerd. And I wanted to talk about it, and I had this topic on my mind for a while after watching Extreme Rules, and I know a lot of people are talking about where have they gone wrong with him, is he done, can he recover, can he be rehabilitated. So let's go straight into the topic and where I think that they went wrong, and where I think he was failed in some ways. Now, is he the best in-ring wrestler in the world? No, he's not. Is he the most proficient guy on the microphone? No, he's not. But was there something there? Yes, there was. Now, I want to go back to when he was repackaged. After the Skip Sheffield thing, I always got the impression, when he was injured, broke his bones in his foot, I always got the impression that the company were very high on him. A big, jacked up, muscular looking guy. I mean, that is the norm in that company for years, and I just knew that he would be someone they'd be high on. And if he's even halfway competent, I know they're going to just give him the world. So he comes back as Ryback, and it's a simple formula that has worked throughout the history of wrestling. You bring in a newcomer with an obvious upside, you put him in there with enhancement talent, where he can kind of get some of his moves over and his mannerisms and everything else over. Bit by bit, you set him apart, build him on a streak, make him look like a force of nature. Every time he faces a contracted WWE guy on a pay-per-view, it seems like something important for them, and it's a good way of bringing in the guy. And I was thinking to myself, this is something they should have done with Sheamus. Anyways, the push is progressing. They're bringing him in slowly, which I think is the done thing to do. And towards the autumn, they looked like they were going to put him in the next step up, which was the Intercontinental title. Obviously, the comparisons to the Goldberg push were being made, but I could see them getting ready to build him for the Intercontinental title with The Miz. He did the segment with The Miz, and perhaps something else later down the line. Now, if you had told me about 3 weeks after that, or maybe on the same night, he would then be facing off with CM Punk, I would never have believed you. And sure enough, because of John Cena's injuries and the problems there that had occurred, they had to put him in the match with CM Punk. And I'll tell you what, it was a very interesting match. Not because of what we were going to see technically, but because of the finish. Was Ryback going to win, or was CM Punk going to win? Because they've got two people that they're saving Punk for Rock, but they've built up this Ryback character. And in a way, and I did this video, I remember a while ago in October, leading to that pay-per-view, that they have booked themselves into a corner in a sense that Ryback has to win. And if he doesn't win, it's going to hurt him. And if he doesn't win, they've got to do it in a way that protects him and keeps the steam in the Ryback engine. And there was a lot of momentum there, and apparently the needle even moved on the pay-per-view figures. So that was an interesting little tidbit there. And I just felt that weekend that there was something there that they could have capitalised on, and perhaps they should have done something with. But he lost. Then they put him in the match for Survivor Series. Same thing. He lost. He was put into a feud with the new debuting Shield, which was I really liked. And they were the thorns in his side. But again, on pay-per-view, he lost. At TLC or Armageddon, TLC, Tables, Ladders and Chairs. Yes, sorry, I always get the pay-per-views mixed up. I'm old school. Royal Rumble, same thing. And the Royal Rumble was the one time where I actually felt myself actually rallying behind Ryback, because I just felt myself rallying behind him, and Cena ends up winning. He lost again. There we are, or Elimination Chamber, lost again. They're talking about this big match with him and Mark Henry, where they're going to have the WrestleMania moment of Ryback picking up Henry and doing the slam on him, that move, his finishing move on him. That was the big thing going into it. And I knew from an aesthetic standpoint it wasn't going to be the best match to watch, but I knew what they were trying to do. He lost again. Then they turned him heel the next night on John Cena, or face, based on that crowd's reaction. He challenges Cena, and the first match was meh. Well, not the first match, the lead into Extreme Rules. It was going, and then when we eventually got to the second match, the 3 Stages of Hell match, if that's what it was called, I was like, if Ryback loses again, it's really going to hurt his credibility. And I watched it, and it was a fun match, given the two of the guys' limitations. I knew it could either be a really bad match or a great match. But the point is, at the end of it, Ryback looked like a completely slain dragon. Like, he had been slain, and there was no coming back. And in typical Cena fashion, just destroyed the guy and made him look like an absolute bum by the end of the match. And Ryback was an afterthought. And he was off TV, and I know since then there has been a lot of discussion. TV tracks, they played a clip by Don Tony and Kevin Castle. I know that Solomon Monster, another great podcaster, he has talked about this. I know Kyle, of course, who I put in the league with those guys, he has talked about this. I know that NYGE for Life 123 has somewhat talked about this, and I know others have talked on this, so I want to touch on this. Where they went wrong with Ryback. And for me, I think it hurt him to lose all those matches. Of course, it hurt him to lose all those matches and to kind of put too much too soon. But I'll tell you what I blame from a creative standpoint. More than the losing of the matches, this is what I blame. Remember back in the day in the old WWF, WWE, there was like, you could clearly identify the lower card guys, the mid card guys, the upper mid card guys, the main eventers, and then your special attractions. Remember when you could do that because they had that structure? Remember when a guy came in, there was a clear pathway for them to go. You had your tag team division, and if they broke out of a tag team, there was the singles division, so they'd be in a singles feuds. Then they would eventually lead to the Intercontinental title a couple of times, trade that belt a few times. Then there would be the King of the Ring, that would push them up a little bit more. Then there would be the upper mid-card spot, and then from the upper mid-card spot, if they're successful enough, they launch into that main event realm. You had that structure back then, and you had that. And in addition to that, you had enough established stars where if you had a situation where someone was hurt, you always had someone in reserve that you could use. Remember when Steve Austin injured his neck in 1999 and he had to be off for a year, and Mick Foley was on the verge of retiring, and Undertaker needed time off, and everyone was like, oh man, this is dark days for the company. Well, it didn't hurt them because they had the structure where they had The Rock and they had Triple H, and Kurt Angle was on the rise, and Jericho was there, and Chris Benoit and Guerrero, Malenko, Perry Saturn, they were all there. Foley stayed around for a bit, granted. Rikishi could have been used. Kane was still around. You had enough people and enough elements and twists and structure where you could save yourself. And even if your one half of your main event was hurt, you still had a very solid foundation underneath where you had Edge and Christian, and you had the Hardys, and you had, the Intercontinental title guys like the Angles and the Jerichos and those lot on the rise, and you had the New Age Outlaws, and then you had other attractions in your women's division like Lita, Chyna, Trish Stratus. You had supporting characters like Stephanie McMahon, who, God, let's not talk about her, but the fact is you had supporting characters around there, so you still had a very strong foundation, and you still had more than enough reasons to buy every show. And as time has gone forward, they have gone so far away from that. They've gone so far away from that structure, and obviously the one thing that we have talked about on YouTube, amongst ourselves, is the fact that they haven't created any new styles, and they haven't done a good job of it, and they've neglected things like tag team wrestling, they've neglected things like creating female stars, and they've neglected things like the King of the Ring and the Intercontinental title and all of those other things, but they don't even have a strong enough foundation to the point where they just have to hotshot someone. And if it's someone that's bulletproof, it doesn't hurt. When they had to hotshot Mick Foley back into that mix with Triple H, it didn't hurt Mick Foley because he was somewhat bulletproof anyways. But when you have a guy on the rise, imagine if they had done, let me give you an idea. Imagine if Brock Lesnar had debuted in 2002, right? Actually, no, that's not really a good example. Imagine Kurt Angle, maybe 2 months after his debut, they hot shot him into the title match at Royal Rumble, and then he lost, 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 and then he lost. That would really hurt him, and that would hurt his credibility, and that's the thing you need. You need guys that have that weight, that credibility, that machine, that momentum behind them, so that when they eventually get to a certain spot, it really helps them. And I think that was the problem with what they did with Ryback. The fact is, they didn't have anyone in reserve that they could put in with CM Punk on 3-4 weeks notice. They had no one that they could use. They didn't really want to use Randy Orton because they were upset with him. And outside of that, who else did they have that could be an attractive pay-per-view option for CM Punk? No one. So they hot-shotted Ryback, a guy that they were building that was on the rise. Regardless if you like his in-ring ability or not, the guy was on the rise. He was definitely someone they could have used for the future, and unfortunately what happened is he was a victim of the structure and the lack of creating stars, and it's hurt him in the long run. And my question really to anyone else is, do I think he can recover? Hopefully he can, and hopefully in the interim he can improve and get better and become sharper and tighter as an in-ring performer, and he has a little bit actually, to tell you the truth. But my fear now is that he's going to be a guy that goes into Money in the Bank, goes on a losing streak, wins Money in the Bank, goes on a losing streak afterwards, hardly appears on television, cashes in the title, and when he does, he's nowhere near as over as he could have been, and nowhere near the star that he could have been because of the things they have done with him. So to tell you the truth, I'm blaming the structure and the fact that they haven't created any new stars in such a long time that it's hurt them. And I'll tell you what, a big part of creating a star, especially when it's a hero, is the chase. You know, they say in life that like the journey is the experience, or you know, the journey is the experience, not the destination, or whatever the saying is. I mean, I'm getting it wrong, but the fact is, it's that journey that you make that creates the investment, and I think that that's what it is in pro wrestling. People got behind Steve Austin as he was on his way to the title, and they didn't do it right away, granted, but by the time we got to 1998, fans were their interest was hitting that peak point where it was time to put the belt on him, and when he did, it was a very, very, very big deal and a big business turnaround. The same thing with other performers in the history of pro wrestling. When you look at guys like let me think. You could say Mick Foley to an extent. You could say Goldberg the first time. You could say Sting to some points in his career. You can say that about Ric Flair at certain points of his career. The chase creates the investment, and then when you get there, it means something. Unfortunately, modern day WWE booking doesn't do that anymore. You've got Sheamus as an example, who they hot-shotted to the title twice, and then by the time he eventually wins the Royal Rumble, people didn't really give a shit. So, you know, there you go. Anyways, I'm going to stop. I'm going to let you guys write what you want. You share this video if you want to. You like this video if you want to. TV tracks, God bless you. I hope you lot are watching. Let's get some numbers up. Anyone else? Kyle, thank you for doing your video. If you haven't seen Kyle's video, please check it out. Watch it. Anyone else out there? Write some comments. Let me know what you think. WrestlingForums.com. Hello. If you've not been here before, I do wrestling videos and MMA videos and boxing videos and other stuff. And I do as many videos as I can in a week. So if you haven't seen any content before and this is the first time viewing me, go back, go through the archives, check that out. Also, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Write your comments. I like to try and get back to you. I love reading what you lot will say to each other. My next video is coming up. If it's an MMA video, it's going to be about, is Chris Weidman going to be that guy to take out Anderson Silva? I love to talk about that one, and I'll probably do that tonight. Anyways, I need to stop, get back to what I'm doing. Guys, take care, peace, and have a good day.